We're live, baby, but we're letting it breathe. This is what we do. It's not for no reason, though. All right. We got to bring in the entirety of our audience. And some of them we have to wait until we've actually hit the old go live to weave them in. But we're almost there, guys. Hold your horses. You've waited this long. What's another 10 seconds? Welcome in, everybody. It is a Thanksgiving edition of the Huddle Up podcast presented by Mile High Huddle, powered by Blue Wire Podcast. And I'm your host, Chad Jensen. With me is my fellow football priest, I would assume as roundly stuffed as I am, Zack Kelberman. Zack, first of all, happy Thanksgiving to you, my friend. How was your Turkey Day, Cowboys game notwithstanding?
Yeah, that's kind of what's been dominating my my senses the last 4 hours. I mean, who needs tryptophan, Chad, when you can watch the officiating call 500 penalties over the course of 4 hours? Good game and all. The Raiders pulled it out against Dallas, but my God, I hate when the referees are the central part of a game. But how could I complain when there's football on, when there's food in front of me, Chad? It's one of, if not my favorite holiday of the year, and I hope you had a great one as well.
Yeah, in fact, the reason we're a little bit late tonight, it was a great holiday, and it will continue to be a great Thanksgiving for me. But the reason we're a little bit late is I had, in my family, I'm really, all I got to worry about is the turkey. My wife handles everything else. If we stay home and cook, right? We don't always stay home and cook. Sometimes we go to the folks, sometimes we go to her folks, whatever. We stayed home this time, Zack, and for the first time ever, I decided to smoke a turkey. Now, I've used my smoker for a lot of different things, but I'd never smoked a turkey before. Not very complicated, to be honest with you. Everything going according to plan, no problemo. And then somewhere along the way, as I set a timer for myself to go check it, because you cook it for basically an hour per, what is it? I forget the math. Doesn't matter. Once an hour, I set a timer, Zack, for me to go check on it, right? Make sure everything's cool. And I missed the timer. And then by the time I finally went to check on it, it had a flame out error code on my smoker. So it had stopped cooking for how long? I don't know. Probably it could have been exactly 2 hours, which was in between the time of my last timer and the time I discovered it. Or it could have been, 15 minutes it sat there. But either way, I had to figure out what was wrong with the smoker. Threw everything off. I was supposed to be well done by about this time 2 hours ago is when I should have been done with my meal. But we just barely got done. It was so good, though. Let me tell you something. Smoked turkey, there's nothing like it. I mean, bake it. It's better than nothing. Smoke it. Have your mind blown.
That's all that matters. It's not the journey, it's the destination when you do stuff like that, Chad. So as long as it tasted good and it wasn't undercooked and you don't feel sick from it, that's all that matters. But no. I can vouch for Chad here. He texted Scott and I in the group chat. He goes, "We had a cooking snafu." So yeah, he was definitely real deal about that smoked turkey.
But yes. Thanksgiving. How was we'll get to some Broncos stuff, gang. Trust. We got some super chats that our great community got in early. We'll get to Max first here. But how was your Thanksgiving? We want to hear about it. All right? We want to hear about it. Max says across the pond, "Sorry guys, I'm not impressed with Kellen Moore. If you're a genius, you make it work despite injuries. Nobody gives Vic Fangio an excuse on defense. Doug Peterson, Mike Kafka sounds good." Zack, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I don't think the offense or Kellen Moore lost the game today against the Raiders. When you have a quarterback putting up over 200 yards of passing in the fourth quarter alone, and keep in mind, he was missing CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper and Cedric Wilson, the fill-in for one of those two starting receivers. He was banged up as well. So when you're down missing your two receivers, look at last year. What Drew Lock went through without Courtland Sutton. It's not easy, and that was only one guy. So I don't think the offense was the problem. I thought if you watch some of the plays that Kellen Moore dialed up, it was beyond anything Pat Shurmur could dream of. I mean, look at the two-point conversion to Dalton Schultz as a example of that. Big play offense. You saw it from the Raiders, too, as well. Kellen Moore, though, that doesn't change his whole body of work, and he will be a hot commodity on the coaching circuit.
Max goes on to elaborate further. Vic loses starting inside linebackers and edge rushers, and nobody gives excuses for poor defensive performances. Holding Moore to the same standard, if he's as good as people claim, just don't see anything special with him. I don't know, man. I think it's hard. I think you got to be careful, Max. Here's my 2 cents on this, and then we'll grab Christian. You got to be careful about letting recency bias color 100% of whatever your opinion might be. Look at the complete body of work before you fire off the hot take. And I'm not even necessarily saying that's a hot take. Like, if that's just your opinion, that's your opinion. But obviously, offense is not – injuries are a factor, trust, but offense is not the biggest thing plaguing Dallas of late.
But, to your point, Max, about Vic Fangio's problems this year, well, these problems have predated this year. All the same red flags that we're seeing in 2021, we saw in 2020, and we saw in 2019. And the same problems the Broncos were undergoing on defense, the failures, the breakdowns, the unclutchness of the defense, it was happening whether there were injuries or not, whether they had Von Miller or not. As long as Vic Fangio has been there, they've struggled in certain areas. So he gets an excuse for not having an inside linebacker, but there's other problems that are bigger and more of a Vic Fangio problem, a coaching problem.
Christian, down in the heart of enemy territory, Las Vegas. Appreciate you, bro. Thoughts on a report that Dan Quinn is the favorite to be our next head coach? I'm not convinced that report is accurate. Well, if we want to get to the actual source of this, it came from Benjamin Albright of KOA. And usually on subjects of this nature, let me find the article. Trickle had it for us. Here it is. Benjamin Albright's pretty in the know on these type of things. So if it's a name that he floated, maybe it's not the number one contender, but don't dismiss it. All right. Here's what he said. This was on October 14th. If the Broncos, and he was actually, Zach, responding to a question on Twitter, which was, man, is it hard for me to move on from Fangio just to add a defensive-minded guy? And Albright said, if they move on from Fangio, which isn't being discussed right now, this was October 14th, the short list starts with Gannon, Scott Turner, Dan Quinn, Jason Garrett, Leslie Frazier, Darrell Bevel. All right? A lot of those names, Zach, are retreads. Do you sense a theme here for George Paton? Now, here's the one thing that scares me into thinking something like this could be true, is Paton was around, Zach, when his boss, Rick Spielman, went through the process along with the Wilf family? Wilf? Minnesota? Yeah. Of hiring what became Mike Zimmer, right? And they hired a guy that was very similar to Vic in that he's much more of a firebrand, fire and brimstone type of guy, but very similar to Vic in that head coach of the defense. And yet he's your head coach. He's had to constantly look for basically a peer, an eye-to-eye type of coach to control the offense. That's what I'm worried about, because Paton, he might not have been obviously the point man making those decisions, Zach, but he was in the room for those discussions and the rationalizations and the strategy behind it all. So I'm definitely not discounting it.
I just don't see. You went to that well twice already in a row now with VJ and Vic Fangio. Why not try an offensive mind? It was also October. Things change by the day, let alone the month or the week, Chad, in the NFL. And it's also one reporter's kind of speculation. It's nothing in concrete. George Paton never came out and said, listen, I like Dan Quinn a lot. That's what Benjamin Albright had been hearing, and he passed it along. But let me see what happens come January when or if the Broncos fire Vic Fangio, what rock they turn over to replace him there. On that list, I don't like one name. I can maybe stomach Doug Peterson, but Jason Garrett, Dan Quinn,
yeah, but Peterson's not even on his list.
So, I mean, I would rather go the younger route. And I guess to quote you, Chad, we shall see what happens.
I was just going to say the same thing, bro. There's not one name on that list that inspires me, gets me excited. Not one. Miss me on Leslie Frazier, for crying out loud. How many times you got to go back down that rabbit hole? All right, just because they have a history together in Minnesota, no. Jason Garrett, don't make me laugh. I think that's pretty safe to go ahead and remove him from that list right now after his disgraceful exit in New York. Scott Turner, Gannon, just doesn't do it. Darrell Bevel, Dan Quinn, I understand the draw to a retread guy. And of all the names on that list, Dan Quinn actually jumps out to me as probably being the one that makes the most sense in that, he sniffed the top of the mountain. He got there. He was almost about to like peek over and summit that thing before Bill Belichick grabbed him by the ankles and went, right? Close, but no cigar.
I don't know who would want Dan Quinn, though. His Cowboys defense just blew it against the Raiders. So you're going to hire him as the head coach to face the Raiders twice a year? No. Better defensive coordinator than head coach, just like someone else we know, Chad.
Indeed. Claydo, Tornado, what's going on, brother? Appreciate you being with us today on Thanksgiving. And that goes for all of you, by the way. Thanks for spending some of your Thanksgiving with us. He says, I got one question for the night. Is it possible that Dan Kroenke buys the team via his dad's stand, slipping him the money under the table, Monopoly board game style, or is there a rule against that? You know, I'm not going to pretend like I know what the rules are on something like that, but I would assume, Zach, if it's a separate, I mean, Dan is not Stan, so if Dan has the scratch, he's got the scratch, so he could be just as viable of a candidate to buy a team as anyone else, provided he has the money, regardless of how he comes by it.
Yeah, I mean, I listen, you know, of all the topics, the subtopics that we talk about on the show, Chad, the draft, free agency, contract structure, ownership stuff is like on the bottom of my list of my priorities and what I really put my energy into. So I'm sure they can finagle away if they wanted to. And there's so much under the table stuff that goes down in real life, but it's just too soon to tell right now.
By the way, shout out to Lawrence Rivera for the furious dropping of the stars. Thank you, bro. Thanks. Happy Thanksgiving to you. And to you as well, Yvonne. Hope you're having a great day, my friend. Mohammed Badri in the house. What's going on? How's Malik doing on his first Thanksgiving, right? This is his first Thanksgiving. My boy, Theo, this is his first Thanksgiving. He got to taste a little, his mother whipped up some, she had already prepared it, but some, you know, she took some squash and turned it into like baby mash or whatever. Nothing else in it, just squash, mashed up. It was like the best thing he had ever tasted in his life, dude. Like, you're like, man, to taste something for the first time, you know, all he's had is milk, basically. 727 Mill, good to see you as well. Mo and Mill says, happy Thanksgiving. Broncos need this win after the Raiders won, Zach.
Yeah, I mean, not to mention they're facing an AFC West foe, so they can do themselves some favors as well. But, you know, if they fall down, if they fall to 5-6, they're slipping multiple games because they lose the tiebreaker right now to Vegas as well. So you wanted Dallas to beat, I almost said Oakland again. I can't believe I'm doing that 12 weeks into the season. But the Broncos have to take care of their business first. Beat who's in front of them. The Raiders aren't in front of them right now. The Chargers are. Worry about your own business.
Andrew says, I am stuffed. I hope everyone else had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Appreciate you guys giving us your time. Not as much as we appreciate you, bro. No lie. We got the Queen in the house saying, happy Thanksgiving, my guys, and all of Broncos country. Hope you all enjoyed the day. And, of course, she sends a super chat because she's just legendary Mount Rushmore super chat superstar.
Love you, Christy.
Thank you, Christy. Give our best to your fam.
Thank you, as always.
And then let me see here. I'm just kind of jumping through. I want to see what's on people's minds. There's actually a lot to get to. Miguel, what's going on, bro? He says, happy Thanksgiving, priests and Broncos country. I wish the Vegas and Dallas game ended in a tie. I know, dude. It was frustrating. It was frustrating. And now they are plus 500 again, the Raiders. They're 6-5. So, you know, no rest for the weary, man. The Broncos, they can't afford to, I mean, not that they have any laurels to rest on, Zach, but they have to treat each and every game moving forward like it's sudden death playoffs, because there's a chance, you know, that 2 losses from here on out, you're out of the playoffs, with just the way we're seeing the AFC playoff picture, and particularly the AFC West shaping up.
You know, can I give Rich Bisaccia a little credit? He was kind of a punchline when the Broncos faced him, but it seems like he's kind of righted the ship in Las Vegas. And what a tough hand to be dealt after the Gruden thing, Henry Ruggs, Damon Arnett, and they're going into Dallas on a primetime Thanksgiving game and coming away with a win on a special teams play. It's good to see special teams play for another team, by the way. It's like tasting bacon for the first time, Chad. You're talking about tasting food.
Yeah.
You know, he's like what Vic Fangio should be as an Italian head coach, Bisaccia. And what do the Broncos get? This was Vic Fangio's Thanksgiving side, pasta. Can you be any more stereotypical and bland?
Andrew Baker, what's up, bro? Love y'all. Hope everyone has a good turkey day. I gobbled till I wobbled. LOL. Nice. Now let's put some vibes to beat them bolts. Yes, indeed, brother. And by the way, congrats to Robot of Doom for hitting 200 followers on Twitch. Good for you, big dog, and happy Thanksgiving to you. Let me see here. There's a few topics I want to get to, but I just want to make sure we're not missing somebody in the chat. So K-Hop16 wants to know, did we get an update on Chubb? Does he play this week? So he did return to practice Monday, or he was activated to returned to practice. Practiced Wednesday, practiced today. Vic Fangio today, Zach, here's his message. Well, I'll just paraphrase him. He said that the first 2 days that Chubb has practiced, he's looked good. He's felt good, but he still gives him like 50-50 odds to play on Sunday against the Chargers. And if he did play, he would be on a pitch count.
Yeah, I mean, it's too soon to tell what's going on with Bradley Chubb. I think, obviously they're going to limit his snaps if he does go, but I think anything to get Malik Reed off the field as the starting outside linebacker I'll take right now. I'm intrigued by Bradley Chubb, Jonathan Cooper bookend at OLB. So we'll see.
Miguel says, today is a good day to watch potential head coach candidates. Want to see what Daboll has tonight? Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. David Bingaman brings up a good point. Good to see you, David. Happy Thanksgiving, bro. George Paton is never going to leak head coaching preferences. This is media BS, and it very well could be, right? But see, here's the thing. When a guy like Benjamin Albright, who we know, he's a great guy, when he makes a statement like that, he's not just necessarily pulling it out of thin air. This dude has contacts from the player to the agent to the front office to the coaching level across the league. There's a reason why he stuck around as long as he did and finally got his break. And now, he's working for KOA. The dude is rarely wrong on things like that. Just because he's throwing that information out, let's just say it's not his opinion. He's basing it off of things he's heard. Consider this, David, doesn't necessarily mean it's what he's heard from a source in Dove Valley. It could be things he's heard from sources outside of Dove Valley that could include things like the Broncos making calls, texts, things like that, checking temperatures here and there. You never know.
I mean, he could have heard that from Dan Quinn's agent, for example, or someone close to Dan Quinn or Darrell Bevel. Yep. So you're right, Chad. It's not necessarily a Broncos source that's reporting that or someone close to Peyton, but it's worth noting going forward, it maybe can paint a picture as to what direction Peyton wants to go if he wants a retread.
Of the retread options that initially come to mind, right now, I'm still erring on the side of Doug Peterson if it's going to be a retread. Like, if you want the safe, comfy feeling of knowing the guy you hire has been in the job before, whatever. Doug Peterson's the only guy right now amongst the candidates. We'll see who gets, crap canned at the end of the season and whatnot, but that's the only one that I wouldn't completely go like this.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised, Chad, to see Marvin Lewis's name be thrown into the fray at some point. You talk about retreads.
What's he been up to?
Wasn't he on Herm Edwards' staff at Arizona State, if I remember correctly? I don't think he was back in the NFL, but he was always a solid guy. He was always kind of like a low-rent Mike Tomlin in the AFC North. And I think you can do worse. Not my number one guy, certainly not, but better than Jason Garrett. I will say that about Marvin Lewis.
So Marvin Lewis, I'm just going to take a quick look because, he was the head coach in Cincy for like 15 years. What was it? 03 to 18, right? So then he went, as you said, as an advisor to Herm at Arizona State to becoming in 2020 the co-defensive coordinator to, again, coming back in this season to be a quote-unquote special advisor. I don't even know what that means. So, but yeah, intriguing guy, but you wonder why he's not doing what he does at the NFL level. Maybe he just burned out. But Diamond Rattler, how many games has Bradley Chubb played for us? 5. Every time he stubs a toe, he ends up out for the season. This is the reason why you can rest assured. And if I'm wrong on this, I'm wrong. But I rest assured, Zach. Bradley Chubb's not one of those guys you're going to hear about a extension by the end of this season. First of all, he's coming back next year on a 5th-year option. That's already been decided, so they don't need to pay him. But I submit that this time next year, let's just pretend for a second, Zach, that he's 100% healthy from the time he returns until about this time next year. I still don't think the Broncos pay him in season just because of how much of a injury liability he's been. They want to really get as much of a track record there before they make any kind of overture, because you can always franchise tag this cat. There's a lot of different things you can do to prevent him from hitting the market that do not include an early extension, because you're right. Outside of his rookie year, he's been an injury liability. Even last year, Zach, in which he earned his first Pro Bowl nod, he ended up missing the last 2 games. So I understand fans' frustration with the Chubster.
I do as well. I mean, he's almost like Derek Wolfe in the sense that when he's on the field, he's really impactful, but when he's so rarely on the field, it hurts the team by his absence alone. If you don't want to sign him to a long-term deal, though, I don't know why you'd want to franchise tag him. That number for an edge rusher, outside linebacker has to be astronomical, so it might be cheaper to actually sign him to a long-term contract. But I think the Broncos are going to play it out and let him prove his health or non-health, as it were, and then go from there.
Lawrence says, I love smoking turkeys. We had the Rachel Ray recipe this year. Interesting. You know, I kept it super simple. I just took some thyme, some rosemary, cut up some onions and you know, some garlic, and a whole stick of butter into the cavity. Put some butter between the skin and the breast. All right, and then I hit it with a little homemade rub of 3 ingredients only: garlic powder, salt, Himalayan salt, and pepper. That was it, dude. And then I would baste it when I'd check on it every hour. I'd baste it with some butter. Turned out bomb. I'll tweet you guys out a picture. You can rate my turkey.
Should be a new app. Rate my turkey.
Shane Daniels, what's up, Aviator? He says, happy Thanksgiving. Hopefully we win this Sunday, and happy Thanksgiving to you, Shane. If we drop this game, we are going to have nearly no shot to make the playoffs. Glad Chubb is coming back. Yeah, it's not good. I mean, you dropped to 5-6. Is it over? No. But the precedent it sets. And I'll tell you what, Zach, listening to Pat Shurmur today, this guy just strikes me. I had a piece about it after he talked, like a guy that's basically out of ideas. Like when he steps up to the podium, he's either just so tired and burnt and jaded and calloused and cynical that he just doesn't give a flying flip to give the media a word one of insight, or he really doesn't have any insight. Like he's burned it out, like it's gone. And if that's true, then it'll come out in the wash, as it has, and you know it'll work itself out, right? But this dude, to me, could you find a less inspiring guy to be Xing and Oing your offense?
I mean, you have to have ideas to be out of ideas. I don't think Pat Shurmur ever had ideas to begin with. And yeah, if they do lose this game, you have to consider they have Kansas City up next after that in prime time, by the way. That should be really fun. You also have another game, more divisional games left on the schedule. Cincinnati on the schedule as well. I mean, it could spiral fast if they don't win this game on Sunday.
All right, guys, let's take a quick look since it is Thursday. Yes, Yvonne, we're going to get to that right now. Right now, buddy. Let's look at some head-to-heads because this is, of course, the first meeting with the Chargers in 2021. And we'll go through the head-to-head. Now, if it's a green, that means a top 10 designation, red, bottom 10, black, right in the middle. So there you have it. On the turnover margin, the Broncos are at 0. So that means they've taken the ball away the exact number of times that they've given it away. Whereas the Chargers are +1. The Broncos still, Zach, somehow, inexplicably, are a top 10 offense in time of possession. I don't understand it. Meanwhile, the Chargers are, middle of the pack. But if we look at these offenses, you start to see some pretty clear separation here. First and foremost, the Chargers are number 8 in net yards, number 5 in yards per play. Passing, they're the 6th most prolific passing offense in the league. Let's see, Green, they've only lost 2 fumbles. They've only given it away a total of 10 times. Herbert has only been sacked 18 times, which is the 6th fewest. Third down, they punch it and move the chains 45.2% of the time, which is 6th, pardon. Meanwhile, let's look at the Broncos. All right, net yards per game, they're 20th. Scoring, they're 23rd, averaging 20, whereas the Chargers are averaging 26. They're just outside the top 10 on points. However, we get to some green here, Zach. The Broncos have only been picked off 6 times, which is tied for the 7th fewest. And they've only given it away a total of 11 times, which is tied for the 7th fewest. So in theory, Zach, I submit to you, Fangio got what he wanted. He got a quarterback that would minimize the giveaways. But then as you look at the defense, I mean, we'll go over it here in a second, but unfortunately, his defense hasn't been good enough to compensate for a lukewarm, impotent offense that plays not to lose.
Well, again, you have to look at the context and look at the turnovers individually. the number sounds good, but one of those turnovers directly lost you the game, the fumble against the Eagles, Melvin Gordon's fumble. So they've come in inopportune times, and they didn't throw a lot of interceptions the first couple games, 3 games or whatever, but Teddy Bridgewater has turned the ball over repeatedly the last couple weeks in play. And go up for a second, Chad. I want to make one more point that just absolutely disgusts me. The Broncos control the ball. They're leading TOP. What's their ranking? 9th. Okay, so they're holding on to the ball, but they're 19th in rushing when you have Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. It is inexcusable. They are not within the top 16 in any one of the major categories there. All the weapons they have. You can blame excuses, and I had a piece about this as well. George Payton pinpointed injuries as the biggest detriment to the Broncos offense. No, the biggest detriment is Pat Shurmur, and then a 1B to that is Teddy Bridgewater in the quarterback play. There is no reason why they are not better, or we're not seeing more green on their side. The Chargers have a franchise quarterback. They like to air the ball out. They're top 10 in passing offense. They're top 10 in doing what they do best. The Broncos run the ball the best, and they're 19th. Do the math there.
And then look at this, all right? Look at this ugly red. Would you be surprised if I were to tell you only 5 teams have allowed more sacks on the quarterback than your Denver Broncos? What about this? There are only 4 teams with a worse third down percentage than your Denver Broncos, and 3 teams only that are worse in the red zone. So these 3 right here are pretty indicative, Zach, of, you can be top 10 in the fewest giveaways, right? But if these 3 categories, I'm not going to say it as my dad would say, that would get me into some trouble. But if you are at the back of the line, let me just put it that way. Doesn't matter how solid you are in rushing, how much you're controlling the clock. If you can't close, right, when the chips are down, whether it's third down or the red zone, bye-bye.
Yeah, I was told in college when I first started covering the NFL, not the NFL, but football a little more professionally, that TOP is the most useless stat in football. And, at some points it really is. You can control the ball, but when you're not doing anything with it, if you're just taking time off the clock but still punting or missing field goals or not getting fourth down conversions, it doesn't matter anyway. But to be that poorly ranked 20th, 19th, 23rd, 18th, I mean, we don't even see a top 10 until had intercepted. And then giveaways. That's the only green we see on there. Okay, they're not giving the ball away, but even those numbers are skewed because they were so clean the first 3 weeks of the year. But when the competition got better, they've given the ball away. So when you look at the big picture, Chad, if you're objective, the Broncos offense is not anything more than average, and that might be a compliment.
No. I mean, to me, they're definitely below average, all right? And this is what I mean, Zach, is Fangio got what he wanted. Right? And I don't disagree with what you said as far as each one of these giveaways has a context, right? I agree with that 100%. But from a macro perspective, all right, we go a little meta here. Vic Fangio wanted a quarterback, ostensibly, who could batten down the hatches, right? Plug the leaks. Just don't give the game away, Teddy. We'll go with my defense and we'll win this thing. Just don't lose it for us. How far did that thinking get you, Vic? Not too far. Let's look at the defense.
It's going to get him a pink slip in a few months.
Mos Def. All right. Defensively, the Broncos, a little bit more green, but still, net yards per game, they are ranked top 10. All right. They are 9th in allowing just 328 yards per game. They're 3rd in relinquishing points, only 18.3 per game are the Broncos allowing. Net passing, they're top 10. That's good, right? They're only allowing 218 yards per game, which is actually pretty surprising considering their number 1 corner is a rookie. And Justin Simmons took about a quarter of the season to get up to speed, and Kareem Jackson inexplicably is the only Bronco at his position leading in fan Pro Bowl
What
voting.
Is that about?
What the Sam Hill? Does he have like an army of Chinese or Russian bots that are like, just, I don't get that. I don't understand it.
Stop the count.
Yeah. But here's the other thing. The Broncos have bounced back because, that was Fangio's calling card as head coach and defensive czar for the Broncos since he's been here was, number 1 red zone defense in the NFL. That slipped precipitously to open this season, but they've kind of inched their way back, and they are now top 10 again in red zone percentage, currently ranked 8th, allowing touchdowns on only 52.4% of opponent trips inside the red area. But look at this. Only 5 teams worse than the Broncos at allowing opponents to move the chains on third down. And you know what? This to me remains a surprise. Why are there not more sacks in a season in which, by the time it's all said and done, Zach, you're going to have 17 games? The Broncos have 24 on the year. A lot of it without Vaughn, right? Vaughn only accounted for 4.5 of those sacks. It surprises me that ranks them tied for 12th.
Yeah, defensive mastermind, Chad. To your point, it's, let me get Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback and let my defense take care of the rest. Well, Vic, your defense not taking care of much. They should be top 10 in these certain categories, Chad. Passing yards per game. They have the most expensive defense in the NFL, the most expensive secondary, and they've paid everyone. They've drafted to that position, so they should be better. But when you're 27th on third down, when you're 20th in takeaways, 13th in interceptions, it's the coaching not getting the most out of the talent, and I think that can be applied to every unit on the team.
Meanwhile, let's take a quick look at Brandon Staley's defense, which I know it's being coordinated, of course, by Ronaldo Hill. Not his replacement, former, after Staley left to go to the Rams, Broncos hired Ronaldo Hill to be the secondaries coach. That was last year. Then when Staley got the head job in L.A., he hired Ronaldo Hill to be the man. And as it stands, they're pretty lukewarm, middle-of-the-road defense. All right, net yards per game, they're ranked 17th. Points per game, as I mentioned, they're 27th. And a lot of that, shootouts, they've been a lot of shootouts, most of which Herbert has come out on top. They are the worst rushing defense, Zach, in the NFL. So is Pat Shurmur wise enough to poke at that open wound, do you think?
I don't know. I honestly wish I can go on here and say, yeah, they're going to run the ball and exploit the Chargers' weakness, but when have they been known to do that? When Pat Shurmur has the obvious in front of him, Chad, Occam's razor, he rarely goes that route. So I wouldn't be surprised if Teddy Bridgewater throws 40 times against LA on Sunday, because it makes too much sense to run the ball with Melvin and Javonte Williams.
They have the 8th most fumble recoveries, so good for them on that. The balls kind of bounce their way. But they're not picking the ball off, and yet, Zach, they have the 5th best passing defense, even better than Denver's. Interesting. Now, here's where it gets bad for them, all right? They only have 20 sacks, which ranks them just on the bottom end of middle of the road. And then third down, they're actually worse than the Broncos, allowing 46.8% conversion rate.
What's the Broncos on offense for third down?
Third down, they are 28th.
Oh, this should be a fun matchup, huh? 28th versus 31st.
Mm-hmm. And then in the red zone, they're allowing 62.5% of trips to be scored as touchdowns. So that pretty well sums up, I think, Zach, this head-to-head. And honestly, for a 6-4 team, you look at them statistically, if they don't have Justin Herbert, this is a 3-win team. So figure out what you can do to smother that cat, and you probably can handle the Los Angeles Chargers at home.
I just don't want to see Malik Reed one-on-one with Austin Eckler. I mean, something like that. This is an offense in the Chargers. They have weapons, Chad, at every position. Receiver, running back. They have Herbert, obviously. So if any of those players get their one-on-one coverage and they can win these battles, it could be a tough afternoon for the Broncos secondary.
Scott says, dirtiest thing I've heard all day. Rape my turkey. Hey, get your mind out of the gutter. Colby says, happy Thanksgiving. The Broncos' future looks bright. One thing I'm thankful for. Go Broncos. Hey, man. Love the optimism. This is how we love hearing that, all right? Doesn't make it true, but we love hearing it. Ed Keating. What's up, everyone? Happy Thanksgiving to everyone and MHH staff. Right back at you, bro. Denver Broncos for life. And by the way, when you're at the bottom of the pit of depredation, there's really only way to go but up. So it stands to reason that you're right, by the way, Colby, that the future is bright, all right, because it's been so dark. So we're going to roll with that. We're going to stick with that. Andrew says, I'm so tired of opposing teams. So tired of opposing teams being the worst at something. Then they play the Broncos and boom, problem solved. Right. It's really a sign of incompetence at the coaching level. It really is.
Well, it's also a sign that the other team has better coaching because they're exploiting what the Broncos can't do. And to harken back to our point, Chad, will Pat Shurmur exploit the Chargers' weak run defense? We don't know, but we know that an opposing coach would do that to the Broncos. That's where the Broncos lose so many of these games. It's rarely the talent getting beat on the field. It's on the sidelines and underneath the headset that's beating the Broncos, the coaching.
Miguel says, here's some stars for coffee for Scott. Appreciate that, bro. Jeff, good to see you. Long-time Super Chat superstar. Been with us from the beginning. Good to see you, bro. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. He says, Jerry Jeudy better step up and be more of an impact player for a first-round pick. Chubb better show why he is, as of now, not good enough. Yeah, definitely not been good enough. But mostly, again, it's you charge it to the injury bug, and that's part of the factor here. Zach, it was an interesting piece, I thought, that Luke Patterson wrote up. Luke went on vacation last week, and he's been back in the saddle and cranking out content for us. And he'll, of course, have Keys to Victory tomorrow publishing. But he had a story today. I want to get your thoughts on this, and I'll give you the cliff notes. But let me just go ahead and pull up so the viewers can see this. Exploring whether the Sutton and Patrick extensions might hint at the Broncos perhaps trading Jerry Jeudy in 2022. And here's the takeaway. All right, guys, go read the article because it's very interesting to kind of go through some of his logic here. But the idea being Jerry Jeudy, because you've invested so much and allocated so much cap dollar-wise at wide receiver, and then you still, of course, have KJ Hamler too. You take from that strength a real bargaining chip, a real asset to use in whatever it might take to land a Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson. Do you think, Zach, that the signings, the dual signing of Sutton and Patrick, in any way, shape, or form portend for something like that for Jeudy?
No, it kind of reminds me of, the Cowboys already had Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup. They drafted CeeDee Lamb. I mean, you're retaining these receivers to be an either or. You're retaining them to build a dynasty of sorts at the position. You want to have as many weapons as possible. That's how you win in the NFL. And the most successful teams out there, on offense especially, they surround the quarterback, veteran or rookie, with talent. And that's what the Broncos want to do. So I don't personally see Jerry Jeudy on the trade block. I maybe can see someone giving up a second or third for KJ Hamler. Just because he's a deep threat, he doesn't have as much functionality as a wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 in this offense. But Jerry Jeudy, I think, is here to stay. And when you pair someone like that, who's not even scratching the ceiling of his prime or his potential, and you pair that with two possession guys like Tim Patrick, Courtland Sutton, that's a great position for any quarterback to be in.
It is.
Keep the band together.
It is. But here's why I think the premise is not necessarily off, because especially as it relates to Green Bay, the Green Bay Packers kind of made some social media posts right before the season started, like this is the last dance with Aaron and Devontae. And if Aaron ends up getting traded after this season and Devontae hits unrestricted free agency, pretty much count on him not coming back to Green Bay. They're going to need some kind of a pillar, right, to pass the torch to for Jordan Love. Jerry Jeudy, as part of a trade package, in theory, here's a first round pick, Jerry Jeudy, a couple of twos, give us Aaron Rodgers. To me, that makes a lot of sense because Aaron Rodgers then lands in Denver. Are you shedding tears that you don't have Jerry? Sure. But you got Courtland, you got Patrick, you got freaking KJ Hamler, you got freaking Noah Fant, Albert Okwuegbunam. At the end of the day, we might be shedding tears to see our first round pick get dealt. Aaron Rodgers ain't shedding no tears over that because he inherits what is now suddenly a veritable war chest of weaponry.
Yeah, I mean, on paper it makes sense, but the Packers could just as easily draft a receiver with the compensation they'd be getting in that deal as well.
True.
So it would depend on how they feel about Jerry Jeudy. I just don't see George Paton doing that. I think he has a plan, and that plan involves as much offensive personnel continuity as possible, especially at wide receiver.
All right, guys. Well, we're going to be winding down things here in a minute, so any burning topics, get them out. David says, good to see you, David Wilder. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well, bro. He says, I'll be watching the stream later, but I just wanted to say hello to Broncos country and wish everyone in Broncos country a happy Thanksgiving. And thanks for doing the chat tonight, Chad and Zach. You got it, bro. Since we've been doing these live streams, and this is Is it the second season or third season? I think it's the second
second
full season. Either way, we haven't. If it's Thanksgiving, we go. If it's Christmas Eve, we go. If it's Christmas, we still go. When we say 7 days a week, it's 7 days a week. And, that doesn't mean we don't every once in a while take time off. I went on vacation, took my family to Florida earlier this year. We had a co-host step in and help. If Zach takes a day, we got a co-host step in. And the same for the other shows. So we do really try to prioritize for you guys this conversation being here every single night, whether we're in season, whether it's draft season, whether it's the dog days of the NFL summer sitting in the middle of June and not crap to talk about. We still want to be here for you guys.
Yeah, and Chad, you know as well as I do, anyone in the business knows this is not a 9-to-5 industry. I mean, this is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, almost like being on call. If news strikes, Chad, you've written news in your car, you've pulled over. I've written news in like a Starbucks before or like a Panera Bread. I mean, we want to give football fans, Bronco fans, the most complete experience. So, yeah, we're going to be on here 7 days a week, regardless of holidays, weekends, hours. We've potted, Chad, after the late Monday night game at, 1 Eastern, 11 Mountain before. So anything we can do, we will do because we're doing it for you guys.
That's right, man. As long as you're here, we're going to be here. Trust on that. So appreciate you. All right. Let me see what else there might be burning from. Oh, we got Dave from Georgia in the hizzy. Good to see you, bro. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. And give our best to the fam. Hope you had a great turkey day, brother. Yeah. Based Case, another been with us a long time. Super chat, superstar. Good to see you, bro. Would the Chargers thumping us this week be enough for Shermer to get the boot or KC on primetime? Staley will exploit us given his familiarity with us. That's a good point. Who do you trust more? Because Fangio is going to know the weaknesses of Staley as much as Staley might know some of the weaknesses of Fangio. He wasn't here for Pat because Staley was only here for year one of Fangio. That was during the Skangs days. So it's a pretty equal, understanding of each other. But which coach, and then we'll answer his question specifically, Zach, do you trust to actually exploit that weakness or exploit and capitalize on that knowledge you might have of your opponent?
Well, I think the Broncos on paper are the more talented team, quarterback notwithstanding. So I'm going to trust the coach getting the most out of that team. And I hate to say it, I hate to talk up a rival or compliment a rival or side with the enemy, so to speak. But right now, I have no confidence in the Broncos or Vic Fangio, specifically for that matter. You beat Brandon Staley, you win this game, I'll have faith in you. But coming out of that Eagles loss, Chad, how could you roll with him on his side this coming week?
So would it be enough for Shermer to get the boot if the Broncos get thumped?
I don't think
Man,
so.
Here's the deal. If there has not been a straw to break that camel's back up to this point, what leads any of us to believe there will be one? I just don't see it. I think Fangio is going to go down with the ship if he goes down, and Shermer's going to go with him, bottom of the ocean, like Leo and Titanic, dude. It's just, you see him into the depths, he sinks. That's just the way it's going to be, even though you've got a guy in Mike Shula who can call plays, give him a little he wasn't good against Philadelphia calling plays. That was as bad of offense as we've seen all year from the Broncos. But if you give him like, hey, this is your job now, I am curious. I would still be curious to see what he could do with these same, chips on the table, as it were.
The difference is ain't no one going to be crying, Chad, like the Titanic. When that ending comes around, everyone's going to be cheering that, as they should.
James Grossman says, hey, gents, not a football question, but do you prefer yams or sweet potatoes with your turkey? Go Broncos.
Mashed.
What's that?
Mashed potatoes. I'm not huge, and I like sweet potatoes. Yams a little too sweet for me. First of all, I'm kind of with Scott. I thought they were mostly the same thing. I'm not exactly a culinary expert, but I would prefer, in this scenario, sweet potatoes.
Yeah, I thought that for a time as well. But chef, one of my 3 best friends in the world, is an elite chef. He schooled me on that. But I got a side on sweet potatoes. All right, sweet potato casserole, as we call it in our family, and it's not necessarily what it sounds like. Many of you know what I'm talking about, but it's mashed up sweet potatoes, and then on top is like a crust of pecans and some kind of like, I don't know. Cinnamon and different. So it's almost like a sweet thing. It's almost very similar kind of umami of like pumpkin pie. That we had that tonight. It was very, very good. So if I got to answer that, I'm telling you, sweet potatoes, my dog.
I'm throwing a curveball in there, Chad. I had these earlier today, but potatoes au gratin, which are fire.
Good stuff. I love au gratin potatoes. Most definitely. Okay, guys. Andrew Baker, we've just been burnt too many times, Zach, especially since his MHH time. He hasn't covered a playoff game, but hey, let's believe it's all we have. Yeah, dude, while there's still a chance, you're going to be hoping for the best, right? You're going to still continue to hope that your team can turn the ship around, and we're right there with you. We're right there with you. All right, let me just make sure. I don't think there's any last burning questions here. I just want to double check here. Big Earn, by the way. Shout out to Big Earn. Good to see you, bro. Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Joe says pumpkin, cheesecake, or cherry pie. I'm not a big cherry pie guy, Zach.
I'm a big cheesecake guy, but I don't think I'm not a big pumpkin pie guy. So I don't think I would like pumpkin cheesecake. I do like cherry pie though, but I think if you gave me like strawberry cheesecake versus cherry pie, I'm going with cheesecake.
I can honestly say I too have never had pumpkin cheesecake, but I love pumpkin pie and I dig cheesecake. Like cheesecake is so rich that I kind of have to be in the right mood to want to eat cheesecake. But nevertheless, I'd be down for that over cherry pie. I'm not big on fruit pies, you know. I don't love
apple
pie. I don't hate it. Don't get me wrong. It's not like I think it's gross or something, but that's not what I go toward. You know, I don't go if you've got like a pecan pie, pumpkin pie, cherry pie, apple pie, I'm going for whichever one on that list is not of the fruit variety. Now, if that's all there is, hey, I'm going to eat it. Throw some friggin' whipped cream or some ice cream on top. I'll eat that.
I'm hungry now.
Time for seconds.
Yeah. Seriously.
All right, guys. Hey, thank you for joining us. We're going to cut out here a little bit early tonight and go enjoy the rest of our Thanksgiving as well, as you should. Zach, if you wouldn't mind the rundown, and I'll just pull up and show how we finished on the chats.
Yep, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in with us on this Thanksgiving edition. Kind of a quieter one, but that was to be foreseen. We'll be back on Sunday for the gut reaction to the Broncos Chargers. But until then, follow the pod on Twitter at HuddleUpPod. You can follow the main account for all your Broncos news, analysis, breakdowns, information, and insight at Mile High Huddle. Follow Chad on Twitter at Chad and Jensen. Follow myself at Kelberman NFL. Right now, go to HuddleUpPod.com and get yourself a Football Priest hat, Football Priest shirt, hoodie, coffee cup. Everything you can imagine is in that store at HuddleUpPod.com. Also, guys, Facebook.com/MileHighHuddle. Hit that big blue button. You get instant access to our VIP programming, Kelberman's Corner, Broncos Book Club, and Trickle Zone each and every week. Also, Facebook.com/MileHighHuddlePod. Like that page. And if you haven't, go to Apple Podcasts and leave your Football Priest a 5-star review for a chance to win some swag each and every month. And as Dylan says here, make sure you hit that like button because it goes a long...
That was my fault, sorry.
...long way for us. And as Dylan says, subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. Helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you.
And guys, hit that supporter button on Facebook because Kelberman's Corner returns Sunday at halftime. If you want that halftime gut reaction, give you a little preview of what's to come for the post-game show.
Fire.
Only supporters get that stream, and that'll be Sunday at halftime. But shout out to these superstar senders on Facebook on a Thanksgiving day. These names and more are the names we have to be very thankful for and grateful for here at MHH. Lawrence Rivera, thank you, bro. Miguel, thank you. Andrew, James, Yvonne, Colby, Shane, Andrew Baker, Travis Tarbox, Claude Riley, David, George, Charlie, Elena Joel Katz as well. Thanks to each and every one of you. And then plus, got to shout out the superstars, Max Power, Christian, Clado, Mo, 727 Mill, The Queen, Jeff C., Dave from Georgia, Based Gase. Love each and every one of you. We'll see you Sunday. Don't forget to check out tomorrow night, the Valley Deep Divers, and then, of course, Mile High Insiders on Saturday night.
Have a great weekend, Chad. Have a great rest of your Thanksgiving, Scott, as well. Take care, guys. And as always, see you Sunday, and go Broncos.